All right, welcome everybody to our bike and hike meeting of March. Lynn's not here today, so I'm running the show. First order of business is the meeting minutes from February. Does anybody have any corrections or additions, comments? Can we have, oh, I'm sorry, I've got a puppy here. Can we have a motion?
A move to approve.
All in favor? You have a second?
You need a second.
Second. Okay. Who seconded? Louise?
Louise.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have Ben here from 60 Meeting House Road. So if we can, we'll turn it over to you, Ben. Where'd he go?
He's there. He's
Oh,
on
there he
mute.
is. Okay.
There we go.
I'm going to mute myself so my dog.
All right, good morning, everybody. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what I have up on the screen is 60 Meeting House Road. This is a project that we've been in front of the Township Planning Commission a number of times and had an opportunity to meet with the Planning Commission on site. We've also had an opportunity to receive a review from Michael Baker's office, Chris. And what we're proposing as far as walking trails and amenities is there's an existing trail along our frontage at this corner that we're going to extend along our frontage, come across a crosswalk, and then follow our basin and wrap around an out parcel to take the trail to the edge of our property. Unfortunately, there was not enough right of way for us to continue the trail along our frontage. In addition, we also have sidewalks on both sides of our road. And that's pretty much it as far as trail connections. Pretty simple project, and would look for any feedback that the committee has.
And I know at the Planning Commission, we were concerned about some of the grades and, you know, the proximity right here between this house 10 and the other property. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that.
Yeah, so a couple things have changed from this version of the plan versus the last plan that the Planning Commission would have seen. There was a request in Chris's review to confirm that we had appropriate distance from existing and proposed cartways. So we've now added a dimension along the existing right-of-way, and then added a dimension along the proposed new road in terms of spacing of a trail with proximity to the curb. In addition, we have adjusted our grading along the basin to soften the grade so it's not so steep, and starting that grading off the trail as well. Unfortunately, the way the project laid out, we don't have a tremendous amount of space between us and our neighbor. What we proposed was there's some landscaping that gets installed on this side of the trail and some additional landscaping over here. And we have decided that lots 9 and 10, we're going to let the homeowners choose what they'd like to do to buffer. We're going to offer them an allotment and let them decide whether they'd rather have a fence or arborvitaes or whatever their choice is. We didn't really want to predict, just because I know whenever I predict, I'm wrong. So for example, if I proposed a fence, they don't like that, or if I put trees, they didn't like that. So we're going to give them an allotment that they can choose whatever they would like in terms of buffer.
Hey Ben, this is Steve DeSchulo. I also work with Chris at Michael Baker. At the corners, right by lots 9 and 10, at the corner of the property that is not yours, does the trail narrow any less than 10 feet, or is that maintained 10 feet?
It's maintained 10 feet.
Okay. I guess the only other thing, and I can't even claim this as my comment, but a few of us were talking about this the other day. And do you see at the corner where at the bottom right side of your basin where the trail goes 90 degrees back of lot 10, the connection there from the existing sidewalk?
This here.
Yeah, so imagine somebody walking up the road from the existing sidewalk in front of starting in front of lot 10 and walking up the existing sidewalk and then having to take a left. There's a little corner of nothing
Yep.
there, and people may cut the corner, and I just don't know if there's a way to soften that transition up there.
Yeah, I think what we can do is that we can just pave that little corner. There was a comment in the last letter when we had brought this trail initially, we made a T intersection. And the comment was, hey, can you soften that? I think the answer is now we'll have to just, pave this little section. So we continue to maintain that kind of T for the folks on the sidewalk, but then also have that flare going out.
That would be good. I think it looks great.
And
Ben,
this is
thanks.
Chris. I think that when we talked with Dave Tomko at the township, the preference was to have the sidewalk flare into the trail. So the terminus for the trail is a continuous curve. So the folks that are on the trail kind of have a visual to keep the curve there. So if we could maybe put a radius on the sidewalk on that little corner to make that sort of almost 90 into the trail with the concrete from the sidewalk, I think that would be the preference.
Sure, that's no problem.
Yep.
We
Yeah, just
put
for
a trunk-
everyone's.
Yeah, should we put a truncated dome there? Just to transition?
No, the truncated domes are for crossings. Those are for blind
Okay.
folks to understand that there's a crossing. So we don't really have a crossing.
So just the transition needs to be something that's smooth, though. I agree with Steve on that.
You're not gonna have a maintenance issue with people just cutting the corner on the grass, and it's gonna be a beaten down area and
Yeah, I know.
mud and all that stuff.
Yep. Yeah, we'll.
Just in general for everyone's information, the Ben and his folks, Rob, have done a really nice job weaving this path into their development. We had a meeting early on to try to work it out, to try to work around this out parcel, and they're doing a nice job of integrating the trail with the community. They're going to be providing a trail easement on top of the trail, so the township will have the ability to maintain it and that sort of thing moving forward. So it's looking good so far.
Yeah. Conversation that we had yesterday, Steve and Dave and Chris, I would say that the path itself will be dedicated to the township, but the fencing, landscaping needs to go to the HOA. Okay.
Understood.
Good.
And there was also a problem with where the path hits the out parcel in those back two corners with
This
the
one here.
slope and just getting through there. Were you able to correct that?
No. So what the discussion, I'm going to zoom in. We have some existing grades. This is fairly steep on our neighbor.
Okay.
And the edge of the right of way is essentially where this gentleman's fence is. And so you can see how we have it graded. If we pulled our trail right up to the edge of the property, we then have a grading issue where we'd have to go onto the gentleman's property to adjust that grading. So we kept the trail back, whatever that distance is, maybe 5 or 10 feet from the property line. We did, for the planning commission folks in the township, we did adjust that widening. There's a 175-foot taper that we now show here and pull some of the grading back, which is what you see these lines here.
I was referring to, and I forget the name of the people that own the parcel that you surround.
On the basin, Ben.
The two back corners of that property.
Yeah, those two back corners.
Yep. So over here, we were able to adjust the grading off the 5 feet along both sides of the person's property. The trail does come, within. Rob, do you know what this distance is?
It's about 1 foot.
So the trail itself is about 1 foot off the property corner on each side.
And how wide's the trail?
10 feet.
10 feet
Okay.
wide.
Okay. Good. Thanks for doing that.
Looks good. Any other comments?
No.
Okay, thanks an awful lot for your efforts here. That's great.
Thanks for having us today. Enjoy the day.
you.
Okay, we'll move on to the 202 trail feasibility study. Steve, you can take this one.
Yes. Let me just share my screen here. All right. Hopefully everybody can see that. For those, I guess, not in the loop, a few weeks back, we hosted a virtual meeting room for our 202 trail feasibility study, which extended from Central Park to Pools Corner. I'd say overwhelmingly, this was a successful project and a successful trial. We received in our, let's start with this one. We received 203 responses for people who entered the room and wanted to put in, you know, their name, address, and primary interest in trails. And at the exit survey, which was number 6, we received almost 140 responses, so 139 people. And you know, the coolest part about this is overwhelming majority said that they would be supportive of this trail design. I'm zooming in here, so hopefully everybody sees that. 118 people said yes, 4 people said no, and 17 people said maybe, and they were able to explain it a little bit more down in these comments here. The trail alternative that they preferred I guess a majority was the red route, and kind of tied for second was the yellow route and the black routes, respectively. But most of the people actually didn't care. So you know, I think we're gonna have to use a blend of what everybody wants, really dive into the details of each response, but also kind of use the physical constraints and, you know, our engineering judgment to see what is the most, you know, feasible, what can we get in the ground, you know, first, or you know, maybe the most strategic.
Cost effective.
Cost effective. Exactly. Lines up with the best grants, things like that. So we got a general idea that, you know, most people are like, we want this. The latest responses here, I mean, you know, I don't want to go into all details because there was 100 of them, but I'd say most of them looked like this, you know, sooner, great job. You know, we support this, nice idea. There were a couple folks, you know, 20 or so that went into, you know, a good amount of detail, zoomed in on, you know, their access points in their neighborhoods and whatnot. So that'll all be taken into consideration when we make our recommendation. And that's what we have, you know, so far. Was there, I guess, any questions, comments, concerns from using the room? Would you like to know a little bit more from your guys' perspective?
Well, I'm curious about how is this the kind of numbers you expected, or is this high or low, you know, for this kind of thing, or don't we really know yet? As far as number of responses.
Yeah, I was impressed by the number of responses. I don't know if I had an expectation going in. It was kind of like we blasted it out to, Stephanie said, I think 500 residents, and we set it up on social media. I mean, this thing could have exploded more than it did, or, you know, had far less interest. So I think, you know, personally 200 people joining the room for this and you know, given their support was quite a success.
Yeah, plus we had, I don't know if anybody saw, but both the Patch and the Intel did big articles on the room itself and the feasibility study, and the Intel focused on the use of technology during COVID and whether this type of technology would continue post-COVID. I mean, Marilyn, Judy, several others know that when we started like the Turk Road and we were in a room where you had to come on a specific night to hear the presentation and participate, we had very good turnout. I mean, we probably had about 75 people attend, but we probably sent out a few hundred invitations at that point. So I think in terms of response, I was pleased with this. Because I mean, people still had to do something. I mean, they still had to go to the room itself, go online, find the link. You know, although we made it as accessible as possible, people still had to do that. So I think it was a positive response and participation.
And if I can jump in here, we recently did a public input for the Newtown to DNL trail feasibility study we're working on. It wasn't the same meeting room format. It was done a little bit differently, but we received 216 responses. So it's kind of in line with that.
That's good.
Thank you.
In my past lives, I did a fair amount of survey research, and anything north of 20% was something to celebrate. So I think this is pretty good.
Great.
Stephanie, your article was good PR that brought a lot more
Yes.
attention to it to others who may not have been aware.
Thank you.
It gave good visibility to the whole trail aspect of everything, as well as the methodology of doing this. And I agree with Larry, coming from a consumer products field, anytime you can get that kind of response, that's a real win. That's way above most.
That's great. Well, COVID's teaching us a lot.
Right, so, yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer it, but other than that, we're gonna, basically take this information and compile it into a recommendation and a final report for this study. And that'll be our next steps, submit it to DVRPC and try to pick out some major projects that we can start getting funding for.
So Steve, this format and doing these rooms like this, I mean, as far as compiling the information, then it's probably a whole lot easier than, you know, an actual presentation.
Yeah, I'd say it's actually, it's comparable, you know. I think that I would probably still have put together, you know, maybe these photo logs here, maybe a list of opportunity and constraints, and definitely this map. But the cool part is we don't have to print it out or lug it to a room. So there's advantages.
Yeah. So maybe this is a good model going forward, and the next one will be put together that much quicker just because you're working out the kinks.
Absolutely.
Great. That's really good news.
As a citizen and neighbor respondent, I noted in my feedback that I think it'd be great to have a link with Pebble Hill Road, given that it's an S route and going to be a key spoke on the system at some point. So I know that adds to the complexity and cost given the arrangement that needs to happen there. But just putting in my 2 cents on that one, because I think that will be a critical intersection for the system if it's built.
Can you just take us back to the two top picks as far as the survey was concerned? Take us back to the overall map, just to review where those trails are.
Sure.
Proposals.
Yeah, Roger actually commented on this one here that that the colors of the routes didn't line up with the exact name of the routes. So this will have to be fixed in my final report here. But as I mentioned, you know, no preference was the top winner, and then the red route followed by the yellow and the black were kind of tied. I keep looping in the black because it's secretly my favorite one. But here is here's the map coming up here, and I'll show you that the red one is completely on the, you know, the top side of this page, if this thing will ever load. There we go. Okay, so I'll try to keep it kind of zoomed in so everybody can see it, but the The red one here starts Central Park, heads up New Britain Road to the existing Lower State Road Trail. We do require a SEPTA rail crossing somewhere in here, which I think will be an engineering challenge, but it's been done. We got through it on the Lower State Road, but it just adds some complexity. There may also be some right-of-way concerns in this area, but we do have like a land development property going on here, and perhaps a way to squeeze in there that we just discussed yesterday. So it still may be feasible, but at any rate, red continues on the north side of the page here, crosses over by the Wawa and continues on the north past the Country Club all the way over to Pools Corner. The two other ones start, at New Britain Road back here, which, I think that was identified way back when as a pretty cool connection to some existing trails down here, the existing trail along Warden Road and whatnot. And it does look like we have some right of way there. We have some capabilities to maybe give the road diet or switch some lanes around and things like that. So we kind of like this connection here. And then the idea with both of these routes was to come up around Warden Road, parallel to 202. And then the difference here is the yellow continues along the south side and the black switches over to the north side. We did have, and I can, I guess, get on this now, but we had a meeting with Eric at the Doylestown Country Club last week, and he was very receptive of our plans and information. He looks at trails as a big amenity, not just for the township where he works, but also exposure for his club. He really kind of got it. And we had a really good conversation. So if we can kind of leverage his support and, maybe that pushes us towards the red or the black route, because we have a long strip of, a supportive neighbor, perhaps a small construction easement if necessary, or a temporary or a bike easement if need be. So maybe people were scared off by the crossover, which is why I think maybe red and yellow won, because it just stayed on the same side of the road. It was easy to visualize.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one?
And now, Steve, just the thing you and I talked about and you just commented on was the getting the colors straight, because red can't be blue. That's going to confuse people going forward.
Yeah, that was those colors are embedded in this forms link. So I guess whatever first option you give is always this color. So I'll straighten that out for the final report.
The crossover, you're talking about a pedestrian bridge.
Actually, this little this is Easton Road here, and through land development and also just a separate project, we planned for, I guess, the black route and the blue route. You can see kind of switches from either quadrant. So the blue route here would start in the top and then it would cross over to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if when going through it, the public was maybe it was just a little less straightforward. And they chose the ones that were solely on one side of the 202 or the other.
You were looking at a structure mounted barrier like we've done on the other bridges.
Oh, okay. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering physically. What is that?
Oh, yeah.
And that's a segment we're going to probably do anyhow.
Yeah.
Yep.
The money from Wawa and the continuation all the way down along South Main Street.
Yeah.
And I sat through the virtual presentation that PennDOT did on the two roundabouts at New Britain Road
Right.
and South Main Street. And I think that's going to work out well. That's not a bad connection. If we can complete the section along New Britain Road,
Mm-hmm.
and then coming back up North Main Street, crossing over and going on the north side. So I think that there's going to be a lot that's going to happen there aside from what we're studying here anyhow,
Right.
and probably happen quicker than actually doing the work that we have in this plan.
Yeah, I think the path at Tabor is part of it's built or it's in progress.
It's built and
It's
they
built.
put the top coat on it already. And it's really a nice, Shandor and I guess Gilmore did the engineering on it. They did a nice job on it. I like what they did. It rides well, it looks great. So I think it's, and Stephanie and I talked about that. I think this is kind of a easy priority because the opportunity there is to get this connection into Doylestown Borough completed.
Yeah.
Without expending hopefully any funds, if we can get the right grant and match. It's an easy one to do, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, just a couple of things. The Wawa engineer did do some conceptual layout for that barrier across Easton Road and the interchange. So we have a place to start. It's not designed fully, but at least it's better than, starting from zero. We have the new signal at Wawa, so that will allow for any safe connections. Yeah, we have money to build from Wawa out to Steeplechase, that little 500-foot section, which will connect there. And then I believe all the bike and hike folks know that there's plans for a new recreation center at the back edge of Central Park.
Yeah.
That the township's working on. So that will be a natural
Connector.
Yeah, natural connection there from, that adjacent neighborhood along New Britain Road. That'd be a huge selling point for any grants or anything,
Mhm.
is to connect to Central Park and to that rec center, with a trail towards 611. So that could go a long way to, pointing us towards those options, the yellow and the black options.
Chris, I wonder if there's the opportunity to use the, was it 25,000 from Wawa as match and take that a little further? I think the township's intent was to use that money and construct that portion you were talking about at Steeplechase themselves, but
Yeah. And
I'm
that's
just
that's
wondering-
what the borough wants. And so that we've been working on that section, and that's going to probably take most of the 20,000.
well, but the
Fair.
question is,
And they want that done. The intent is to get that done this year.
well, that rules out most grants, I think, but
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, we'll get a lot for that 25 if the township and the borough are working on that together.
It's 20.
Is it 20? I keep.
It's 20. John didn't get a lot out
I
of
think
it.
we were negotiating for 25 and we ended up at 20.
Well, it was the
That's
borough
how it
project,
works.
so it's okay. At least they got something.
I'm excited about getting that stretched down because it's one of those visible pieces that,
Yeah, we got the Bucks County Historical Society gave us the easement there, which is the biggest chunk, and so I think it's a positive connector there, and you have a big neighborhood.
Yeah.
So the sooner that can get underway, the better.
Yeah, we already have approval from PennDOT. We did some plans and got safety approval. We just need to get ENS approval now, and we'll be able to move forward with that. I think in the fall is the timeframe.
Great. All right, how about Old New Road?
let me talk about that for a minute because Stephanie, she got the whip out and got me moving on it again. Because if you've driven down Old New Road, it's a battle zone. And they're still working down there, but the road's pretty much destroyed at this point. So I went out last week and ran 13 different cross sections, surveyed them in from Buck Road up to Bristol Road. My son and I did that. And I've started laying them out and laying the trail in on the cross section. So I'm hoping I can meet with Stephanie and Dave by the end of the week and go through a sort of a first draft of it, because the township's intent is to completely rebuild the road,
Mhm.
pull out the old rolled curbs, put in regular vertical curbs. And when we walked it last fall, I guess it was, Stephanie, it looks doable. We're going to need minimal cooperation from neighbors, and there'll be minimal impact. There's usually plenty of right of way there. And there's
Tom,
a
is
couple
this a
drainage
separate-
issues, but I think they'll get done when the road gets rebuilt.
Is this to be a separate path or
Yes.
a lane?
It'll be a separate off,
Off
side
highway.
path.
Okay,
I think we were looking at 8 feet on this one just because of the constrictions, and it's not going to be a major trail
yeah.
segment. It's more of a neighborhood connector.
Well,
And
are
when we
they
hit Bristol
narrowing
Road,
that
we'll go up to
roadway?
10 or 12 feet.
Are they gonna narrow that roadway a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's the intent when we
Yeah.
walked it, is that it goes from probably 20 feet or less coming off
Yeah.
of Lower State Road
Right,
to as wide as 28 feet, I think, or something.
yeah, it seems very wide in places.
Yeah, and it's one of those roads, I use it all the time to get from Lower State to
Mhm.
Bristol and head down 611. So it's a cut through,
Yeah,
and cutting down the width of it, putting vertical curbs on it should slow some traffic.
well, the only thing that's slowing the traffic now is all the potholes.
Yeah, well,
Because it's a wide road and you could really go pretty quick down there if it
It
wasn't
is,
so
and-
rough.
and the idea is to look at it to see if maybe, it's a township road. Maybe we can talk about putting a intermediate stop sign where we cross at one of the intersections.
I was just thinking if it were narrower, it would slow the traffic a little bit too.
Yeah, and right now I laid it out at 2 11-foot lanes,
Mhm.
which is what the 202 Parkway is, I think, isn't it, Chris? Yeah,
Yeah.
without curbs, but this would have curbs, so it seems narrower.
Mhm.
Um,
Good.
But that's what I wanted to go over with Stephanie and Dave and see if we can, the intent is that when they rebuild the road, at least what we can do is plan for this and make sure it fits in. Whether we do it now or do it with a grant later, we'll have it ready to go.
Well, isn't that underway now? That
No.
road rebuilding?
Well,
Yeah.
the planning
We're-
is, but
Yeah, I mean, paving is going out to bid. We have to resurface it, and then we're gonna come back in with curbing and everything like that. Because the road is it's just fallen apart. I mean, it's where they're staging for the sewer, water, storm drains. I mean, totally rebuilding the infrastructure in that neighborhood.
So they're gonna repave it and then rip it up again?
Well, we have to base pave. We have to get base in because the road is just falling apart. And
Yeah.
that'll happen probably, we're gonna have bids are out, going out this,
That'll
like
happen
today or
this year,
tomorrow.
right?
Huh?
That'll happen
Yeah.
this year.
Oh, it'll happen. It needs to happen as soon as, they
Mhm.
start making asphalt, basically.
Yeah.
We can get basin, which is probably beginning of May, as soon as we can have contracts. I mean, the intent is to have a bid in front of the board, bid results in front of the board by their first meeting in April.
Well, then this really has to move pretty quickly, otherwise we're going backwards, right?
no, I
Well,
don't think so.
No, I don't think so. And we're
I
gonna
think
probably
the
need a grant
plan
for it,
is-
or we're gonna have to price it out.
Yeah.
Because it's not part of, any money that we have set aside right now. But there is demand out there from residents. I mean, we've heard from them individually that they want to see a trail along Old New.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the grant application here is this plus extension down to Central Bucks South along Bristol. That makes for a good grant application because it fits a lot of them with the safe routes to school and everything. It by itself isn't a good grant application. But I think if we throw it in with that and work with Warrington Township together on that segment, that's a perfect grant application. And we've talked to Warrington 2 or 3 times already about it.
Good.
And their staff is looking at it the same way we are at this point.
Great.
And maybe we get take it all the way up to Lower State on Bristol,
Mhm.
depending
That'd
on
be
what,
nice.
what grants are out there. And there was a letter that came out talking about grants that the township got, I believe, and Paul had it from DCNR about whether there are 5 different grants, Paul, or 7 that are out there right now. That and it seems like they anticipate throwing more money into trails. Because last round of grants, the county really didn't get a whole lot from DCNR. And it sounds like they might be putting a little more money into these programs. So it's something for all our municipalities here to think about and get ready for it. And if there's an infrastructure bill, that might even be more money coming in. It usually comes in through existing grant programs when the federal government throws money at it. That's what happened last time with the water projects, for example, that came in through the state.
Good. Okay, that's a good segue into the Neshaminy Greenway Trail then. So can we get an update on that?
Which part are we going to talk about, Paul?
Oh, well,
This one's,
Worcester,
this is New Britain Township.
Oh, okay.
I guess I'll take that one, Judy. Yeah, the project's basically complete. We have a few signs to finish up, I think. And we had our first meeting with DCNR regarding the Coleman property to close the gap between, the trail now, basically the end of the trail there at the berm behind the Weldon property off of Willowwood out to Upper State Road. So that's going to be moving forward into design here in the near future.
Great.
That's what I got on that piece. I guess I'll let Paul talk about his piece, if that's okay.
yeah.
But
Is there
just
gonna
talking
be
about
an
that
opening
piece.
for that? An expected, like trail opening for that piece, Chris?
I'm thinking it's going to take about a year to design and permit.
Okay.
So we're probably talking about construction in 23, probably,
All right.
or late 22.
I just wanted to say that the section that is complete, I've ridden it a couple times. It really rides very nicely, and the new signs going through the neighborhood work perfectly. And I wanted to thank New Britain Township for all the paving they did on the roads around Peace Valley. That's really nice.
That is good.
It really, those roads were all sort of about the same state in the same condition. And I don't know if you paved that old dirt section that goes to the one parking lot up by the nature center or not, but that was a big improvement.
Mhm.
Thank you. Tom, I actually have a question for you. Because we've just had a resident complain that people are cutting through their property to get out from that turnaround. Do you see a lot of people turn around and come back?
I haven't seen it. The only thing I noticed, it looked like there were dirt bikes or something back in there too, on some of those properties. And I wasn't tempted to cut through any of those. It looks like a hard thing to do.
It does, but they actually have security cam pictures of people with prams and road bike coming up through their properties. So it's
Well,
concerning.
that's odd because it doesn't seem like we have that problem on any of our other trails.
Okay.
And I think when that gets completed, that's going to disappear.
Oh, totally. But for the people who are living there now, who didn't want the trail in the first place, they're a little miffed.
Well,
maybe there's a temporary sign, that could be.
Well, there are signs down there.
Oh, there are? Okay.
There are no trespassing signs. Stay on there's a good chance.
Fencing work? Do you need fencing?
Pardon me?
Do they need fencing? I'm trying to get a visual and I don't have a visual, so.
I wouldn't go to that expense, and I can guarantee you that if that's happening, it's kids from those neighborhoods.
Mm.
No,
Adults,
no,
it's
Okay.
adults pushing children and also from a stroller. So
oh,
and to me, it's like you'd be really bushwhacking through there to get anywhere.
yeah,
Especially a stroller.
if it looked easy, I would have done it myself, but it didn't look easy.
Cynthia, is it back by the berm behind Weldon?
Yeah,
We have fence in there already.
So I was just looking at the map. Did the trail end up ending earlier than what it looked like?
A couple hundred feet.
Yeah.
A couple hundred feet. I mean, we were going to extend up to the Coleman property line, but just to save a few dollars, we cut it off a little shorter.
Mhm.
Yeah, we always had this problem with the Coleman gap, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
kind of, I think everyone decided that half a loaf was good at this point, and that would help us get the other Golden property done. Well, maybe that just pushes us quicker to get that connection done.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
So-
just so surprised. It literally has just come up. So
yeah,
we'll be
I mean, I
working-
had one property owner, she lives right there, and she said she wanted the connection. So, you know,
Okay. Well, thank you for your input.
Okay, Paul, do you want to pick up on the other?
Judy, can you stay on, the, Paul's down at number 8, so can we just go through
Oh,
real
okay.
quickly? 6 is on
Okay.
hold, 7, can we do 7 and just keep everything in order,
Yep,
please? Thank you.
okay, so Shady Retreat, Safe Routes.
Shady Retreat, we are pushing our traffic ops resubmission by the end of this week, early next week, just to get that into PennDOT for review. Besides that, every other submission is in besides the final structures and basically the final roadway. So we're looking to get that wrapped up in our office as soon as possible to try to get that into PennDOT for review and approval. To get that onto the street, later this year.
So the construction for that is,
We're looking at hopefully a July let date, and then construction starting late in 2021. It may, just being realistic, it may go into 2022 due to the winter.
okay,
it's a good one to try and do in the wintertime. There really aren't a lot of wet areas or
yeah,
obstacles, so it's something that realistically, if it's a decent winter, it could get done.
I agree.
like this year.
yeah, just for everyone's information, just because of all COVID stuff and the funding issues that PennDOT's having, they're really slowing down their advertising schedule. Even though this is federally funded, PennDOT actually has to front the money. I just learned this recently that actually they have to front the money for some of these projects. They have to show the money on their books before they put it out to bid. So we've been seeing a slow up on PennDOT's side to put projects out on the street. Hopefully that won't be the case, with rescue money coming and everything else. But again, that might be just a possible delay also.
Okay. All right, Paul, you're up.
Thank you, Judy. I'll give you an update on the Alms House, Neshaminy Manor portion of the Neshaminy Greenway first. That's the one, that will run through Turk Park into King Park and down Alms House Road to connect to the 2 shopping centers. We're still making good progress on that. We expect to go to bid on that in June and then have a let date sometime in July. So again, still moving ahead with that. And then relative to the Neshaminy Greenway Trail and Dark Hollow, Louise and Judy and I all attended, as did Stephanie and Chris. So basically a third of us here. We all attended the latest Citizens Advisory Design Committee meeting this past Wednesday, of which the primary focus was to discuss with them various trail surface options and explain. We basically went through the pros and cons of each option, talked about how, with the exception of natural surface and or boardwalk trails, pretty much any trail is going to be considered impervious. And basically the outcome of that was that there was not a overall clear preference. There are still concerns about, various options in the excavation and construction footprint they require. The primary desired one would have been the potentially crushed stone with some boardwalk sections. They're still interested in the part of the some of the citizen or the committee members and narrowing the trail, having it all be boardwalks. So we're working through all that. And then tied to all of this is we are still working with the funding agencies to see what, relative to the revised scope, what they're willing to fund and what they're not willing to fund. So Chris has been working with us on that. So again, we are, moving ahead with the project at this time. But again, just know we still have some obstacles. Some other concerns that were raised were the amount of tree clearing that would be required, because I guess there are a lot of ash trees and they're concerned about those falling on the trail. And just, a host of different issues were brought to the table. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. And Louise and Judy, feel free to add your own comments.
Well, Paul, I thought the presentation on the material options was excellent. It was a really good, informative format and really helpful to explain everything. So I thought that was really very good, and it's something that we may want to borrow for some other sections of the trail because it was really well done.
Certainly,
But,
thank you.
what I got out of that mostly from members of the EAC were that they prefer to see trails on roads and not in the woods. And anytime we're going through the woods or along a creek, they want to see the least intervention or the narrowest. They'd rather see a dirt path. I mean, that's what it really came down to, or a boardwalk or something that is the least man-made materials if you can. So that was a strong push on their part was really, do we have to go in the woods at all? Because they didn't feel that, the accessibility issue was something that we should be doing in the woods. So that was a little tough.
Yeah, they wanted to leave trails in bigger parks and places, it seemed like. And
right, they don't want to see them along creeks and along trails, along the woods. They'd rather see bike lanes or paths in areas that are more developed already, and not, impede on nature.
but then those bigger paths get more crowded, like Peace Valley Park.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have the little trails everywhere, the smaller, areas,
Oh, absolutely.
section, because
Yeah.
then you spread it out and it's more enjoyable and quiet and tranquil. And that's what they wanted. And they didn't quite catch that point that if you continue that, then people spread themselves out. And I just felt like they were coming so negatively at it. It just.
Well, I think that's got to be part of our mission going forward. Is there has to be some cross education here between us, because we're sort of at odds with the kind of things that we've been trying to promote. Not everywhere. I mean, we've got some more urban, things that we're dealing with, but to have these connections and these quieter paths and that sort of thing that they are pretty adamantly against. And I'm not sure how we're going to resolve that, but it seems that, there seems to be a little bit better education. And, the issue of just having, the dirt paths or some of the crushed stone, I mean, it was evident in your presentation, Paul, that, it doesn't solve the erosion issues. It doesn't help with the ecology. And I think that we've shown with the paths that we've run along the Neshaminy so far that we can help correct some of the erosion issues, some of the other things. And they aren't buying that. They seem to be thinking that, that wasn't really
I felt like they thought nothing it felt like nothing would rejuvenate itself, no matter what you did. If you
Yeah.
put the tunnels in or you took trees down, it was like you killed, but
Right.
it wasn't going to ever rebuild itself. And it's proven that it does.
Yeah.
And I
And
felt,
I don't know
felt-
how we can do that, but I think we have to have some more conversations between the two groups and see if we can come up with some happier situations, because they are trying to push back on every effort, that they see coming,
Sounds like they have a major problem with ADA compliance.
yes.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, you can't have an accessible trail that's just a dirt path,
That's a real no-no.
but they don't want to see that, money is spent on accessibility. They don't think it should be. So,
Can I ask an engineering question? I had brought up before the pavements that let water absorb, so that I'm just wondering if there was a way to, well, the engineering question is, are those appropriate for something like a bike path? Would they hold up? Because I know the applications I've seen, it seems like it's been used for parking lots where, like, the basins around the Commerce Center, they have like sections that they use for the absorbent pavement. And it seems like that would be because part of what I think when people see pavement, they think of the impervious surface or surface and the runoff and everything. And if it were something that contributed to environmental goodness, by absorbing water, would it be something that could be a negotiating point perhaps with EAC?
well, maybe Paul, I don't know if you can share your presentation with us, or if it's online somewhere that we could view it, because
We will be, we will be posting it to the data portal that has the CADC meetings. I can send a link to Stephanie so she can share that.
would
That
be-
should get posted today. That has the presentation and the meeting minutes. So anyone that's interested in following along. But Larry, to answer your question, we looked at 8 different surface treatments, including porous asphalt, porous rubber pavement, which is like PermiPave, or it's the same idea as the porous asphalt. It's just kind of recycled rubber tires that have been bonded together. We also looked at the geosynthetic grid products that you would either then plant with grass or fill with crushed stone. And the challenges all have to do with really the flooding that occurs potentially down in that portion of the Neshaminy, in terms of the ability to maintain the permeability of those products, because as they fill with sediment and silt over time, it becomes a maintenance issue. So they aren't as permeable as you would think. And really, according to all the township codes, both both Warwick and Doylestown, they are considered impervious, even though they are a permeable product. So we went over all those products, and Chris, feel free to chime in if I, not stating any of this correctly, but yeah, we did, like I said, those were part of the 8 options we looked at in terms of options. And it's really the trying to maintain those products over time in an area that's potentially subject to more flooding versus, like you say, the Commerce Center or the Mercer Museum, or the Valley Square parking lot. All those areas also have the permeable asphalt, but that's kind of the challenge with those products.
And the difference, Larry, is, and the reason there's a lot of discussion about permeable pavement on parking lots, is you have this massive area of impervious surface. And the science, and the science on a trail is the way water moves through soil and stone is not vertical. It tends to come down, and depending on the type of soil, it moves laterally too. And with a fairly narrow trail versus a parking lot, water enters along the edge of the trail. And if it's sand, it moves more vertically. And if it's clay, it moves horizontally through capillary action. So being, you know, the advantage is non-existent with the trails we're talking about.
Okay.
And it just isn't worth giving up any of the longevity of the trail and the maintenance aspects to go to a porous surface on something as narrow as a trail. On a parking lot, it's definitely worth talking about. And the ability to maintain a parking lot is a lot better than trying to maintain the porosity of porous pavement on a trail. I think Paul's 100% correct on that. So giving that up is, I don't think, an option for us long-term. You know, it might get I don't even think it'll get the trail built, because I don't think this is about the environment.
Yeah.
You know, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
Do you think that logic and historical information about the difference in trail surfaces will help convince them?
No.
Or is this is just a losing battle and there's nothing we can do to change the opinion or the feeling of this group?
And one approach that people take on these types of things is to try and we're also wanting to work with people. And we've always done that with the trails, with landscaping and neighbors and everything. And one approach people take is to try and make the project so expensive that it's not going to get built. And in a section like this, where we have a handful of neighbors, it's in a long trail, it could get out of hand in a hurry.
Yeah.
From the budget standpoint. So we have to be cautious with that in giving up things that end up torpedoing the trail because of cost.
I felt like they were trying to educate us on the environment so much, and I bit my tongue the whole way because I kept thinking of how much education and learning you could do to the general public by letting them down on those trails. Yeah. And the respect that they might have and the beauty that they'd be able to see. So it was like the very few against so many others that could benefit from it in a good way, in a natural learning, leisure, recreational way. And that's where I come from always. And it just, the whole time I felt like I was a murderer of nature, and I'm not, but you know, I just felt like it was, you can't come here. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that's an excellent point, because the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, which is the premier environmental group in the state, I think, is very supportive of trails. And the William Penn Foundation, that supplies money for a lot of these trails, they're doing it because they want people to come in contact with these natural areas along streams.
Yeah, and it is beautiful down there.
And it is, and I think it's the right thing to do.
And I've said this before, in walking the trail as it is, you know, along the Neshaminy there, you know, that section, there is all kinds of ruts and damage that's done from ATVs, from erosion from the farm, you know, things that haven't been designed. And I know, you know, when we design our trails, we take care of a lot of that issue and improve upon it. And the little bit of the trail that's paved is not, it's not detrimental to the animals, because you see them on it. You know, they're on it in the mornings and the evenings, and I've seen turtles crossing it just fine. You know, there's not really an issue there, but that seemed to be their aversion to this, was that bringing people into nature was a negative thing. And I don't think we're in an area that is so pristine and so, you know, untouched that that's an issue. This is a suburban community. We're not in some historic preservation area of, you know, of nature. It's, you know, it's a different animal, but I think we have some work to do. And I think, you know, the presentation on all the materials is just a really good educational thing for us to be aware of. And it pretty much holds true that what we're doing is the best way to go. You know, it shows that, but it's interesting to cut, you know, that it covers all the bases with the different materials and their costs and their maintenance issues and their longevity. So it's good educational stuff for us to know about. So if nobody has anything else, we can move on from that. Okay, the pump track, I don't think we have any updates on that right now. I don't know when that's due to open. So how about the mapping project? That is, I've talked to Steve Spindler, who is our cartographer for that. He had asked for some additional information, which he has now gotten. So he is working on wrapping that up. And I think for our next meeting or before that, we'll be able to distribute what he's done. So then we can have our comments on that. So we'll have that very soon. I think, you know, he said he'd have that within 2 weeks. So I talked to him last week, so we'll probably get it next week. And
Denise, I assume he had no issues with the shapefile we sent him.
no, he was,
Okay.
that was good. So
Great. Just wanted to check.
So he's working with that, and then we'll, you know, be able to see a draft of what he's got, and we can comment on that.
Thank you.
So. Anything else? Any other business?
Judy, my Zoom bombed out on me just as we were on the ending up in the Chamonix Greenway thing. So if we said anything about Turk Road, feasibility, East Road, and that, I missed it. I wasn't on board with that. I had to sign back in.
We
No.
didn't, Roger.
Pardon me?
We did not. We skipped over that one, but if you want to maybe. or
Well,
if you
Steve and
want
I
me-
talked a little bit about possibilities of ways of coming out of Springs Drive or Townview, whichever way it goes on to East Road, and which properties to approach. And, you know, there's probably some, I think on one side, as you come out of Springs and get onto East, there was the maybe some wetlands there to approach, or maybe we also talked about that spillway that comes off the pond, making some way over that, perhaps sort of like going down Green Street. We're talking about now when we go down that direction, that there was a spillway of the pond there. So anyway, there's a couple of neighbors I know, and several in there I know by sight, but I don't have a phone number for them or any way to do it. And so the contact is a little bit difficult right now. I don't know if we have email addresses or anything, any way to contact those people. But we wanted to try to get a little bit of, before we get everybody on the road upset, which way is it likely to go, crossing over and so forth. You want to comment on any of that, Steve?
Yeah, I think you hit it nicely. The right of way in this area looks like we have some room to play with at these two parcels here along Hawk Road at the end of Hawk and East. However, once you get into this area here, it pinches to, you know, what the original right of way was way back when the road was built, which was 33 feet wide. This property here is a nice big parcel with this pond, and then across the street, I believe there's two parcels. That this one maybe here and this one here that are narrow to the road. So, you know, my preliminary thought is to stay on the west side of East Road or the south side of East Road until we get across this pond structure. As Roger mentioned, you know, we do have perhaps some wetlands to deal with on this side of the road. I can drop in. But before I do, I'll just mention that, you know, and I would think that we would cross over to the northeastern side once we get past the pond structure, and then ride it all the way up, you know, maximizing our right of way up in this area. So I'll just show you what the potential wetlands looks like really quick. It's kind of right here. So I guess when they built that, they put some nice R3 or nice good stone in here to help with the drainage or the erosion from the road. But if we spin up this way, this is kind of what it looks like. So if we were on this side of the road, we would definitely have to account for that, or maybe do a brief, study just to see, not a study, but we would just have to look into to see what the wetland boundaries, if any, were in this area. But you can kind of see once we get past this pond structure and cross over, it looks like, it would be a nice route up the page there.
Yeah, and I think we talked about once we get up to the area just past the overpass, where it cuts in at a sharp right angle to the trail and what they call the farm complex. They have to access that trail a little, it's pretty steep now.
What about going up,
Whoa, sorry.
staying on the, going back and staying on the same side of the road where the wetlands are, avoiding the pond? I know it looks like there's a lot of vegetation, but what about staying on that and crossing at Hauk versus adding a mid-block crossing?
I like that idea. I think there would just be one additional property to have to negotiate or navigate, I should say.
We
The way to,
talked about that a little bit too, Stephanie, as a possibility.
I mean, you could weave through the trees and stuff, maybe get an easement, go behind. I'm trying to figure out where you're at, but which way we're going
Sorry,
here.
this is Hawk, and it's looking back towards Springs Town View. So
Okay.
behind,
Yeah, I mean, I prefer crossing at a roadway and everything like that, and an intersection makes more sense.
I like that idea.
I mean, it's definitely more open, less trees, but we've done some nice work preserving trees and stuff like that. I think what has to happen is maybe someone on the committee could draft a letter explaining the project, what the goal is, and maybe, I mean, I'd love to have an in-person out in the field kind of meeting with everybody, but maybe we need to start it on Zoom with some photos and stuff like that with the exact property owners that are impacted.
I was thinking the
could be a
same thing. I was
possibility.
wondering, Stephanie, if we could do something like that, or maybe even an abbreviated version of what Steve did for the 202 Pools Corner thing that he did this morning.
Yeah, I
something on
don't
a
think
smaller scale.
the room would be too much,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but a
Something of
Zoom call, I mean, a
smaller scale.
Zoom call with residents, with like a map,
Mhm.
and pictures like this of sharing the screen, where we need right away and whose properties and stuff. But an introductory letter, Roger, maybe you want to draft an introductory letter that we could kind of look at in the next month or so. And that could be sent out to talk about, following up on the Turk Road, project and everything. That would work.
Okay.
That we want to have a Zoom call at some point, and maybe Steve takes the maybe we take the map or show the area, Steve, with a couple of lines on it, potential kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
And
Yeah,
you
you can
just,
kinda-
I mean, put in drop lines of potential trail, need to talk to you about, best location. We may need some easements, for construction or permanent, we want to have a meeting on Zoom. We'd love to meet out in the field, but, Zoom may be better to do an introduction. And then if we need to follow with a Zoom, an in-field meeting, that would be great.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's a way to at least to get the contact started, because it's difficult right now.
Yeah, it is. And I think if, Roger, if you want to kind of do a draft of a letter,
Yeah. Okay.
that would be great. That'll get the committee kind of thing, and you're a resident, so you can, and a neighbor, and
Sure.
then we can figure out who it comes from and everything like that. But let's get an outline of something.
Well,
It might be easier to just, sometimes like following these, the video, you know, of like dropping in and looking down the road, it might be easier to do it almost like a PowerPoint presentation where it's, you know,
Yeah.
slides. You know,
Mhm.
that just
could work,
pick
yeah.
up, pick those points out, and that's something that if it were set up that way that people could view. Well, I don't know, a Zoom call is pretty good, but I mean, there, you know, that if there's another way of doing it where it's pretty concise.
I think a Zoom call with a PowerPoint with it is a start. And I mean, you know, I mean, there's less trees on the one side, but you've got the pond and, you know, and I mean, if you look at like the trail going on Iron Hill to Brenneman Point, I mean, that has, we go right through the tree line. You know, it's
Right.
beautiful. You know, if you go over to Sandy Ridge and Iron Hill Road,
That's
Head
over
north.
here, right? Up north. Okay, sorry.
go north.
And maybe to your point, Stephanie, maybe some of those could be included. Those photo, Steve could have
Yeah.
photos on the Zoom or the
Charlestown
PowerPoint.
Township. Go up that way. Too far. We're Pine Run.
Pine
There's
Run.
the Pine Run, Pine Run Road. Where's Sandy Ridge, Lime Kiln?
You see Sawmill,
You need to be on the other, yeah.
yeah.
No, it's over off of do Brenneman Point. Move down. You're way up too high. You're in
Oh, okay.
in Buckingham. Get back in Doylestown Township. I want to move it for you.
I know, I'm sorry. What's it? What's the road?
Sandy Ridge and Iron Hill.
Sorry. There we go. Sandy Ridge. Sandy Ridge and Iron Hill right here.
Yeah, drop into that.
You're gonna go on this side, in the top side of Sandy Ridge and Iron Hill.
Okay, up here.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait a minute. You're out of the township.
No.
You moved out
no.
of the township. Sorry.
You're in
No,
the
that's
weeds.
Go
okay.
back.
Down in here.
Go. Oh, wait a minute. I'm trying to get Ridgeview. Should be Iron Hill, but what happened to Appleway? Yeah, put it there and then we'll go around the corner. It'll be easier. Yeah.
Okay, so down this way.
Head like you're going to the, you know, the little backside of the Pine Run Reservoir, you know, Covered Bridge Park.
Mm-hmm.
Iron.
This is down Iron Hill. Anyway, maybe we can
No, there's the other side. I think you're going the wrong way. You're
Yeah.
going the wrong way. You need to be heading the other way.
okay.
Head away from Ashway. You want to go around the corner.
Go around the corner toward Appia or whatever.
Yes,
it's called.
Appian Way. That's where we're going. Yeah, that's where you wanted to be. Yeah. See how the trail's there? Whoop. And see how it goes right into there. There you go. Now you're coming up. Keep going. Do, do, do. And we weave
Wanna
it.
go
right-
into those trees.
Yep, we go right into the trees.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and
There
all
we
those
go.
trees were there and we preserve, see
Mhm.
how it's like a little,
Yeah,
It looks great.
well, that's important because in this neighborhood, the trees are a big deal.
yeah. Yeah. So, you know, you may lose it as you continue up, but that's where, you know, we preserved the trees there. That was part of, you know, and I mean, the trees have survived. And
Mm-hmm.
Tom will remember when Pisani brought that plan through the development stage. That was 10, 15 years ago, Tom?
At least.
Yeah. And it's, you know,
And
it's
we
good.
used I think Peter Fernandez was working with us at that point on the committee, and we came up with a trail section where we built the trail up, put geotextile down, put larger gravel in to deal with the root issue and to protect the trees. That was the first time we used that approach. And and it's worked pretty well. It accomplished what we wanted, I think, in terms of at least protecting the trees during construction and afterwards.
And it's held up well.
Yeah, it has some root intrusion issues, but that's not unusual. So it's a
Really
good
very
example.
pleasant. It's, you know, it's very nice. And I'm not sure, it may be 8 feet though.
Yeah, it's a narrow one. It's
Yeah, but we could, I mean, if we had to, you know, we could do 8. I know some of the grants don't like that, but they've, you know, 10, 8, we through a tree area. I mean, we can always neck it down a little bit, you know.
Yeah,
Makes
it's not
sense.
it's not one of the major trails, but
No, but it can, you know, and this trail takes you up just shy of the backside of the Cover Bridge Park,
Yeah.
you know.
oh, there's Paul. Is that Paul out there working? Not
No,
working?
that's not
Not
Paul.
working. Supervisor.
That's Paul not working.
All right, sorry for the Google Maps issues there.
And second to that, I think we want to give some consideration to what we've said. We've identified as going to be a pass through. The trail would be Springs Drive or Downview or both. They haven't been paved. It's definitely, if you look back, I think it's been over 40 years and they're in terrible shape. We were talking about something else earlier on, like the old New Road area. So if we want to get something down, no pun intended, something concrete, which wouldn't be concrete, to get started, to show some visibility to the neighborhood of it's actually beginning the process. We need the road paved anyway, and it would do double duty as a trail with just a few signs then. So
Good.
put a vote in for that.
Okay, Roger, you're working on that letter then.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, I guess we will see each other in a month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.